Captain Midnight.
I'm going to go ahead and state the obvious. There's a lot of superhero movies coming out in 2018. We're going to be seeing everyone from Black Panther to Aquaman to multiple Spider-Men. But in my opinion, there's one film that's really getting lost in the shuffle. The franchise that arguably kicked off the modern superhero movie genre, the X-Men. It's easy to forget, but this November will mark the release of X-Men Dark Phoenix, a film with massive movie stars and an adaptation of one of the most beloved story arcs in comic book history. So why does it almost feel like an afterthought? Well, there's a few answers to that question, but I think a lot of it comes down to the Disney buyout of Fox. On one hand, it left a lot of fans really excited at the possibility of their favorite X-Men character hanging out with Cap or Spider-Man, but it's also left me wondering, does X-Men Dark Phoenix even matter?
You gotta fight hate!
You gotta make a stand!
That's what the X-Men are all about!
Man or mutant, it's all the same.
Now, I can hear a lot of you saying, if it's a good movie, it's a good movie. Who cares if it's the last X-Men film in this franchise? And I agree up to a point. I really want Dark Phoenix to be a great movie, and a better adaptation of its iconic storyline than X3 was. But going into it knowing that it's probably the end of this X-team does put a dent in my enthusiasm a little bit. But let's back up and talk about the X-Men film franchise as a whole. It's been good. Mostly. I like the first two, First Class, Days of Future Past, and especially Logan, but it's always suffered from a pretty huge flaw. All of those movies tend to put the focus on either Wolverine or the relationship between Professor X and Magneto. And don't get me wrong, these are all really compelling aspects of the X-Men mythos, but by focusing on them so much, at the expense of the rest of the cast, the movies have always failed to capture what made X-Men so special. The team. Which honestly is why I think X-Men might be better served on television than on the big screen. Because for me at least, the best thing about the X-Men side of the Marvel Universe is the team dynamics and the ever-revolving cast of characters that allowed them to explore so many aspects of life as a mutant. Take X-Men Season 1. A very well-written and enjoyable retelling of the early days of the original core X-Men. In it, the team decides to blow off some steam and go to a carnival, where they see mutants being screamed at and mocked. They try to step in and help, but it soon becomes clear that these mutants don't want their help, and resent the fact that, as more normal-looking mutants, the X-Men can pretty easily blend in with everyone else, while they don't have that option. It's a good point, and a nuanced look at mutant kind in the Marvel Universe. And it's something that the movies just kinda never bothered with too much. And as a big fan of Scott Summers and Jean Grey, I've always disliked how the original X-Men trilogy sacrificed both characters at the altar of Wolverine, by turning one into a one-dimensional asshole to function as a foil for Logan, and turning the other into a fairly bland love interest. Especially these days, when we have great series for both of them that show they can be so much more than that. Wolverine is one of the most compelling characters in comics, so I totally get the impulse to center so much of the films around him. But the X-Men need to be about more than him, or even the Professor and Magneto's philosophical battle. At its best, X-Men stories paint on a massive canvas, spotlighting tons of weird, interesting characters and creating thoughtful social commentary. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's soapy, and sometimes it's just flat out terrible. But it always aims extremely high and isn't afraid to take big swings. And that's what's been missing from the movie. They're afraid to get strange or cosmic. I mean, come on, they even managed to make Apocalypse boring.
These aren't ordinary men, they're X-Men figures, each sold separately from Toy Biz.
Now, they get a lot right too. The casting of Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, Hugh Jackman, and even James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender was great. I also think Ellen Page would have been a great Kitty Pryde if she was given the chance to. But the movies are always afraid to expand beyond the same old dynamics between the characters that we've seen over and over again. And with most of the secondary characters like Storm woefully underdeveloped, almost no one else gets a chance to shine. But the most frustrating thing of this era ending with Dark Phoenix is that it really seems like this could be the movie that could turn that around, with early interviews indicating that the focus will be more on the team, and especially Jean herself. Like, this is exactly what I wanted to hear, especially after the mediocre mess that was Age of Apocalypse, and especially when coupled with a new director. It'll be nice to have a new vision guiding the franchise, but after the Disney purchase, it's starting to feel too little too late. And maybe it's just me, but that kind of feels weird, right? Sure, maybe Feige and everyone at Disney will do a great job with X-Men, I hope they do. But this still kind of feels like a whimpering end to the sometimes great, sometimes terrible franchise that began 20 years ago. And as big of a fan as I am of the MCU, I still think it was good to have another company making movies with Marvel characters that did things I'm not sure Disney would be totally comfortable with. Maybe this video is coming off as more downbeat than I meant it to, because believe me, I'm just as excited about the possibilities of the X-Men and the Fantastic Four interacting with the MCU as everyone else. But as someone who grew up with this version of the franchise, seeing it end so unceremoniously is kind of a bummer. The movies did so many things right, from the casting of its leads to some very well-written scripts. But it's always felt like it was missing that core appeal of the X-Men, that camaraderie between the team and getting to know each and every one of them, with characters like Colossus, Emma Frost, and even Bobby Drake never really getting their due. Maybe the Dark Phoenix could turn that around and finally do the team justice, and maybe it'll set up some tantalizing hints about the future, like First Class did. But it won't matter, because at the end of the day, there's almost 100% chance that this series ends here. So not only does Dark Phoenix need to set up and execute one of the best X-Men stories ever told, it also, somehow, needs to be the series finale for these versions of the characters that we've been watching for 4 movies. And that's probably too much to ask from any movie, let alone one that was made before they knew about the Disney buyout. So that's probably an unfair expectation. Really, all you can hope for is that the Fox era of X-Men, for all its mistakes, gets the send-off that it deserves. It may have helped kick off the superhero movie phenomenon, but it looks like the genre it helped create has outgrown it. And I have to say, I'm a little sad to see it go. Hey guys, thanks for watching. I hope you liked this video of me being kind of sad about the X-Men franchise. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe. Oh, and let me know what you would like to see me cover this month. I know Batman Gotham by Gaslight is coming out, so I was thinking about covering that if you guys have any interest. Let me know, and I will see you next week.